Hello and welcome to the first ever NBA half hour, basketball half hour show on New Zealand Sport Radio. My name is Daniel. I've been following the NBA since probably eight or 9 years old. Basketball cards were really popular at the time. That was sort of the thing you did. So learn a lot about basketball players and through cards and the statistics on the back of cards originally. So here I am, 20-something years later. Reason I'm doing this is I know Paul, the host of New Zealand Sport Radio, or founder. It's just giving him a bit of shit, really. He said, "You going to do an NBA show?" And he sort of said, "Oh, if you want to do it." So here we are. I'm not one to step down from a challenge. So welcome to the basketball half hour. We're a little bit neglected in New Zealand with basketball media. So here we go. I've got 6 topics, broad topics to talk about, a little bit of video. Firstly, we're in Orlando. So the NBA season has started a couple of weeks ago. For those who don't know, COVID still going pretty crazy around America, but they decided a wee while ago they were going to try this bubble thing at Disney World in Orlando. So there's 22 teams currently playing a little, I guess, mini tournament to just finalize the rankings for the playoffs, which is the top 16 teams, 8 from the East and 8 from the West. And we're a couple of games away from knowing who our quarterfinalists are, well, playoff teams. We'll get into that soon. But so the Orlando bubble, it doesn't have all the players who are fit. There were some players who decided that it was just too much of a risk or whatever, and they weren't keen to go into the bubble to finish the rest of the season. So it's probably got 90%, 95% of all the players, so it's pretty good. So all the team and the crew and the media and everybody is all at Disney World in Orlando, which obviously is pretty damn huge because 22 teams, 15 rostered players, however many staff they have, and they each have their own media as well, who broadcast their games on their networks back in America. So they all have individual networks in their TVs, and then you have the big networks like Fox and ESPN. So there's a lot of people in Disney World all there for the NBA, and they've introduced this thing called virtual fans. So I've just got a little image. So just bear with me here. So this is the Lil Wayne. If you know who Lil Wayne is, he's a rapper guy. I don't know much about him. Kids these days in their rap music. I was all about that 90s gangster rap. But so there's been a few former NBA players and celebrities and things like that pop up on the virtual crowd. So basically through Microsoft, they've collaborated, and 320 people or something is in the virtual crowd for each match. So that helps create a bit of atmosphere and noise, and people see themselves on TV and they're going like this. And it's pretty cool because, the first couple of games in the bubble, like practice games, there was none of the crowd noise and stuff, and it was all a bit weird. Someone did a cool dunk and it was just quiet, and they're like, did he just do something cool? So now they've got, tried to create a bit of atmosphere, and it's more like the real thing. So that's pretty cool. You can sign up for free. You sign up. I'm not going to give you all the details. I'm sure if you really want to know, you can Google it. And then apparently the team chooses the people who are out of the people who apply, they get to choose who's going to be in the audience. So that's why there's a high proportion famous people. Oh, this Chris Bosh, ex-NBA player, was one of the first virtual crowd members. So yeah, it's really cool. Now, you see in my trusty whiteboard behind me, I've got the 6 topics we're going to cover. So that was 5 minutes. That's our first topic. And next, got a little segment called Stalking Steve. Stephen Adams, only NBA player in the NBA, and by far the greatest. He's only halfway through his career. He's 7 years in. I think maybe his 8th year now. And he's, by far our 7th year now. By far our best and most influential player. He's quite well renowned. He's probably top 10 in his position, has been consistently the last few years. He might get an all-star appearance in the next few years as he comes into his prime. So he's 27, 28 now, and for a centre, a big player, your prime's probably starting about, now until his 31, 32. So he's probably got at least 4 or 5 years of good basketball in him. So yeah, hopefully he gets onto an NBA All-Star team, and hopefully he wins a ring. We do have Kiwis who have a ring. Sean Marks, who played good 10, 15 years in the NBA, but he was a role player and he played like a handful of minutes over his career, was his average amount of time on court. Averaged about 1 point and 1 or 2 rebounds for his career. So having a guy who's actually a starter and playing consistent basketball is very cool. So I've just got a little montage of some of the latest action from the bubble with Stephen Adams. A cool little Euro step there from Big Steve. Bit of hustle. It's well known for his hustle, throwing his body around, and a neat little Euro step. You don't see that from the big men a lot. Again, Steve with his hustle and a bit of his comedy there. He's quite a funny guy. He's well known for his sense of humor as well. And Stephen Adams has got a really good connection with Chris Paul on the pick and roll now. See a nice spin move there. Chris Paul is well known for his pick and rolls at LA Clippers. When you had Blake, the lob city. Now Steve and Chris are running a few pick and rolls together. So Steve there in the low post. Likes to finish inside. That's basically what he does. And he makes offensive rebounds because he's a big, strong guy. He's known as the strongest and toughest guy in the NBA. So he's really good at muscling and getting position on the offensive rebounds. Alexander off that big Stephen Adams screen. Adams with the jump, great execution to his first. He didn't look it when he tried to do that jump up. Little assist there from Steve. 4 minutes to go here in the first half. And you're struggling here, Mark. You got to try to stay in town. Adams with the floater, got it. Do you see what I mean about that touch? Like from that distance off the boom, that was not easy for a big man. Finest. But still, like I said, maybe second best in the Adams family. Nice little assist there from Steve. Dort running the backdoor cut. Steve in the low post again and a little baby hook. Nice little spin there on JaVale. So this is from the bubble here, one of the most recent games against the Lakers. Nice little Euro again there. It's a new string to Steve's bow, the Euro step. Not a lot of big men doing that.
Signed by the Los Angeles Lakers. He could have a role here. Adams inside with the jump hook. Hotbed of Southern Ontario, the Toronto area. Adams with the jump hook.
How's the adjustment been to dealing with life, constantly living with your teammates and not really having an opportunity to get away? And overall, your thoughts on life inside the bubble right now?
I feel good, mate. Let's be clear, mate. This is not Syria, man. You know what I mean? Like,
it's not Syria. So there was a few NBA stars when they first went in the bubble.
Not anything too serious. It's just a bit of dry food here and there, and get bored every now and then.
Yeah, so there was a few NBA players complaining about the quality of the food in the bubble there at Disney World. They're not getting their caviar and Angus beef, whatever it is that they expected to get. But Steve saying, hey, it's not so bad, we're not in Syria. So that's that classic Kiwi humour. So what do we got? Oh, we've got another video. A little while ago, I put together my top 10 dunks of all time. So if you don't agree with this list, feel free to leave a comment. But here is the first. So the top 10, but split into 5. So here is part 1 of the top 10 dunks of all time, according to me. Sean Kemp from the Sonics in the 90s, Seattle Supersonics. He was a great dunker. He was super athletic, as you can see here. Here's Dwayne Wade running the floor, dunking on Varejao. So this is LeBron's team, the Cavs, before LeBron. There we go in the background. Before LeBron joined Wade at the Heat. This is just a great dunk. Kobe. So Kobe could have a number of dunks that I could have, but this one was toward the end of his career, so he wasn't that, his athletic 20-year-old self. He was into his early mid-30s here. Just the explosiveness to get past his defender and dunk over 2 great big men. Grant Hill was my favorite player growing up. He doesn't often have this intensity to him, but there was a little wrestle with this guy that he dunked on, Alonzo Mourning. So basically he was just saying, don't mess with me. Look at the height on this and the hang time. So Dikembe Mutombo was one of the greatest defenders of the 90s. Shot blockers. He would defend at the rim, and the conversation here was that Michael had never dunked on him. So Mike remembered this conversation, obviously, and now he's dunked on him. Julius Erving was another really athletic player in the 1980s. LeBron had to be on the list. Here he is at number 5. You look at the height he gets on this dunk. And poor Jason Terry, the small guy he dunks on, he's about 6 foot tall. No chance against a guy probably 80 pounds heavier. So this lob, John J. Jordan, again, you see the height he gets on this and the hang time. So we're going to stop that there. I was supposed to stop at 5, but I got a bit excited. So we'll go back and see the final few dunks. I think there's 3 to go towards the end of the show. Well, over halfway through, so I better get on with it. So if we just get Paul to bring up the standings here. So we've got most teams have got a couple of games to go. So you see the Eastern Conference here. All the teams, they've all made it. We've got our playoffs. All the seedings have been finalized. So first plays 8th, second plays 7th, so on. I'd like to mention Toronto's got a really good record at the moment. Out of their last 10 games, they've won 9 of them. You see here on the last 10, far side. So a lot of the teams have got quite average records at the moment. They're quite split, but the Raptors are way out in front there. So they're looking pretty good going into the playoffs. But in saying that, the Bucks, who have been by far the most dominant team all year, they've lost quite a few of the last few games, but they haven't been playing their top lineup. They're sort of just waiting their time until the playoffs. They don't want their stars to get injured in the lead-up games when they're well and truly number 1 seed. So it's going to be an interesting playoffs. Goes quite deep. Philadelphia 76ers down there in 6th. They've got a pretty strong roster when all of the team are fit that they could knock off any of the teams ahead of them. Boston are looking quite strong. They've got a fully fit team in the bubble there. The Pacers there, Indiana. Just want to mention TJ Warren. The TJ Warren isn't a superstar, but he's come into the bubble and he's averaging, I don't have it in front of me, but he's had 50-point game, his highest career game, and he's plus and negative is plus 63 over the past 4 games. So their team is 63 points better off when he's been on the floor over the last 4 games. So that's showing how much of an impact he's having on that Indiana Pacers team. And they're looking pretty strong right now. In the playoffs, they're going to be against the Miami Heat. I think that's going to be a really close series. If we just want to scroll down to the Western Conference now. So this is where it gets interesting. Over in the West, we still have four teams fighting it out for 8th place. 2 games remaining. Realistically, 3 teams. The Spurs have to be pretty lucky. They need the 3 other teams to all lose their games, basically, and they can go through if they win their remaining games. So that's pretty unlikely. So it's between the Grizzlies, who are half a game ahead of Portland, who are another half a game ahead of the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns are the hot team right now. They're the only undefeated team in the bubble. They've sort of come out of nowhere, winning their last 6 games to go back in contention. Nobody gave them a shot. They're being led by Devin Booker, who is a young star. He's a phenomenal scorer. He had a 70-point game a couple of seasons ago. But he's been getting a lot of criticism that his team is underperforming and he's not the leader that he should be. He's just one-dimensional. He's a scorer. So there's been a lot of talk about that, and he seems to have come back with a bit of motivation to prove people wrong. He's been averaging over the last 5 games in the bubble over 30 points a game, shooting higher than 50%. His average, his field goal percentage before the bubble was sort of around the 45%. So he's increased that up to about 53%. So he's on a little hot streak at the moment. So it's interesting to see if the Suns make it through. Basically, the Suns have to win the next 2 games, and they need Memphis and Portland to both drop at least a game, 2 games, and they'll be through. Grizzlies just need to win their final 2 games, and they're through. So the Grizzlies have got the Bucks and the Celtics. The Suns have got the Sixers and the Mavs. And the Blazers have got the Nets and the Mavs. So if the Mavs can do a favor and knock over the Blazers, and then the Suns can beat the Mavs as well. So I really need the Mavs to do them a favor, that they might have a shot. So that's the standings in the playoffs. So the playoffs start on the 17th of August. So there's 3 or 4 more days of games, and then there's only 2 or 3 days off until the playoffs start. So the playoffs go from the quarterfinals to the semifinals, and then the conference finals. So first plays 8th, and then if they win, they'll go through to the next round. It's knockout over 7 games. So the first team to win 4 games, they go through to the next round. So the 3 rounds of playoffs before the NBA Finals. So the NBA Finals is when the best team from the East meets the best team in the West. That will start on September 15. Just over a month away, we'll be into the NBA Finals. So my next point I've put on there, and I've already been talking about a little bit, is Devin Booker. So Devin Booker, it's got a point to prove, and the Suns have really come back because they've got quite a strong young roster. It's not like he's got any support. There's 3 or 4 young guys on that team who on any other team, would be an important part of their squad. So that's where the criticism's been around, that he's not quite the leader. He's the best player on his team, but with the help he now has, they should be doing a little bit better. So it's great to see the Suns hopefully fighting. I don't think they'll quite get there. They just need too much to go in their favour with the other 2 teams dropping games. But it should give them a lot of confidence again for next season. So the Suns could be a team to watch over the next few years if they maintain that young roster. And that's pretty much what I've got for the show. So I'll finish with that little video. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to be here at every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock for half an hour. So next time around, hopefully I'm a little bit more organised. I'll have a bit more to talk about. But there's just been so much happening, back into the NBA. There's a lot to really talk about in half an hour. So I just wanted to keep it quite brief. Each week I'll have a few different montages of videos. Each week we'll have a Stephen Adams section. So keep up with the Thunder. Something I want to say is, New Zealanders, you need to be supporting OKC. Something that really frustrates me. New Zealand's, we're not very good at supporting our own overseas when they're doing really bloody well. For me, growing up, when there's no Kiwis in the NBA, I would have loved to have a New Zealander to support. A New Zealander on such a high level, playing in a team who's a contender. So OKC in the playoffs, they're either going to be fifth or sixth. Seems like they're not trying so hard because they actually have got a pick next year, which is top 20 protected. So basically, they don't want to finish too high, so then they get that draft pick next year. If they finish too high, they don't get that draft pick. It's just how all the trades and stuff, you get first round protected, top 20 protected picks. It can get quite confusing, but they've got a really strong team. They weren't expected to be contender. But Chris Paul, who's I think 34 years old now, who's perennial all-star, probably 10, 12 all-star seasons, a little bit past his prime and didn't quite go as well in Houston as he had hoped, even though they made the one game away from beating the Warriors and making the NBA Finals. But a bit of ego contrast, I think, with James Harden. And anyway, he came to OKC. OKC traded Russell Westbrook to join Houston after they traded Paul George to the Clippers. So no one gave them a shot. They sort of got a few really sort of mid-range guys, not stars, but, good solid players. So they've got a team of 6, 7, 8 guys who can all score or contribute to their team. Not quite those superstars, but really strong roster. So I'm really interested to see how OKC go in the playoffs. And New Zealanders, support them. Why are you supporting LeBron's team or all these other teams? Just support the Thunder when you're playing these teams. Like, it wouldn't it be great for Steve to win an NBA title? So anyway, we'll go back to the remainder of the top 10 dunks and be here for another show next week, 8 o'clock on Tuesday. Thanks for joining me. Just want a little shout out to Kobe, rest in peace. And each week I'll be wearing a different singlet, and I might do some little thing, guess the singlet, win a prize. Paul, have you got some prizes? Anyway, top 10 dunks. I'll see you next week. What's going to be number one? How good is this dunk, though? Another great 90s player, Scottie Pippen. New York and Chicago had a huge rivalry in the 90s. Bulls just beat New York all the time, so New York really didn't like them. New York played quite physical basketball. Ewing was a very big physical defender, and it's just he got dunked on. With Pippen walking over him, really didn't like that. Blake Griffin had to be on the list. Freak of nature, great Blake Griffin was in his early days. Just such a big, strong, athletic guy. And you see how high he gets on this dunk. And his reach. He stopped a good few feet out from the rim and just reaches over him. Number one had to be Vince Carter. This is the greatest dunk of all time. Literally jumped over a man who's 7 foot tall. Probably the most famous dunk of all time from the Sydney Olympics in the year 2000. This cemented Vince Carter as the greatest in-game dunker of all time. Sorry, and I just had, we're finished?
No, we're still on. We're still on air. So thank you very much, Daniel, for bringing us the basketball half hour. Don't forget, folks, join us again next week on Tuesday at 8 p.m. for the basketball half hour. As he's been saying, do support the Oklahoma Thunder with the finals coming up. We'll also keep you up to date on the morning sports briefing with how all of the Thunder's games going. So you can join that at 7 a.m. every single morning on here on New Zealand Sports Radio. Thank you, Daniel.